to another edition of the Traction Reaction Podcast. I'm Steve Zautke, and joining us once again, it is Eddie LePine. Eddie was fresh from Long Beach, California. Been able to get back there since COVID, but it's always one of the must-see events of the year. And it kicks off at, in my opinion, it's the best racing party of the year. That, of course, is the road racing dinner at Long Beach. And this year's honoree was Jacky Ickx. And of course, Jeremy Shaw puts that together. Walk us through that for those who might not be familiar with it, Eddie.
Well, I just quickly want to talk about the night before, about the
Okay.
Petersen dinner.
Oh, the Peter. Okay, you went to the. I did not know that. I was at one of those, and that is a nice event too.
It's amazing. Bruce Meyer, who is a good friend and just a great guy. He's Mr. California or Mr. Beverly Hills. And the Petersen just knows how to do it, basically. And they had Zach Brown. And it was quite interesting. It gave another side of Zach Brown that people don't get to see. And I spent a few minutes talking, and he's very open. And it was just an amazing dinner. The food is awesome. The Petersen knows how to do it. And that was Wednesday night, and that really kicked off the week for me. And then we went to Thursday night, the Road Racers Drivers Dinner, which Jeremy Shaw always does a great job with that. Him and his wife, it's just unbelievable, the people that were there. It was as packed as when Mario was inducted, which was, I think you were there for that, Steve.
It's not a cheap ticket, but for the people that show up for it, it is an amazing amount of people. And I always make the joke, the first time I went to the event, here I am in Long Beach, California, a road racing dinner, and I walk into the place, and the first two people I saw were Kevin Olson and Sleepy Trip, two Hall of Fame midget drivers. I walked in, they looked at me, I looked at them, and we're like, what the hell are you doing here?
I could spend a whole talking about who was there, and our guy that well, Peter Cunningham, was there. And
yeah,
I mean, just everyone goes to that dinner, and it was as amazing as it's like once in a lifetime. And for people that can't make it, or it like Steve said, it is pricey, but they usually will put it on YouTube, the dinner. And Jacky Ickx gave a really nice speech. And Derek Bell and him were talking, they just talk about the old days and, with them winning what they won. And, those old stories are always good. They kind of like old fish stories. They get a little better every time they tell them. But it's an amazing thing. And Mario was there to interject with Jacky, and you just don't see that stuff.
And then Long Beach weekend, of course, IMSA, Indy Cars are the showcase events there, along with the historic F1, which Formula One cars, which we'll talk about that in a moment. But IMSA, he had a Porsche Penske, then BMW, Porsche Penske, BMW. And I wonder if that's making the Cadillac guys a little nervous, or in the Acura guys too.
I don't know. I mean, it was just one of those deals. I mean, Bourdais started out, he spun out on the start of the race and took Shank out of the equation. I mean, it was a great race. I mean, it was basically Wayne Taylor Racing, Andretti Wayne Taylor Racing, that really should have had it in the bag, but they had a bad pit stop, and then they had to make up some time. And Penske had a good pit stop. The only thing that was very interesting that made it very exciting was Penske used the same tires for the whole race, which was just basically unheard of. And I talked to Matej after, and he just held on for dear life. And if you saw the highlights, Ricky just smoked it into the corner and thought he was going to get him, and ended up into the tire wall. Yeah. And that's 2 in a row for them. So I'm sure the trip home back to Florida was not too fun for those guys. Yeah, Porsche Penske to be there for the first victory of the 963, I think it was just it was history in the making. So
Speaking of history, you got Kyle Kirkwood too, winning his first race. We knew it was coming, and what better place to get it in Long Beach? And he pretty much dominated the weekend, having getting the pole position too. Kyle Kirkwood is a superstar in the making, American superstar too at that, isn't he?
I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not trying to take anything away from Colton Herta, but I'll tell you, that acquisition that Andretti made with him now,
Yeah.
it was a move of the century for that team right now, because they really needed somebody to step in, because with losing Rossi and just the changes over there and the bad year they had last year, here we are now. And I'm telling you what, the kid did not fold under pressure at all. And now his strategist is Brian Herta. What better guy to have in your box is Brian Herta?
Well,
And
yeah, I think that's a win-win for Colton. It was good. He needed something different. You can definitely see the last year, with Andretti, it falling back a little bit. Colton's the old trying a little bit too hard type situation, making unforced mistakes, and that I think Colton definitely has to clean that up. And with seeing his teammate win, that should give him confidence too. That saying the team has gotten some of that back. Forced errors really set him back last year.
Well, and I think too, it's got to be hard having your father call the race on the radio too. And I think that they needed to change something, and I think it will be for the better, because now with Kirkwood up there, he's going to be able to give back feedback with setups and stuff like that. And I think it's going to help the team overall to move forward, to be better. And you could see it, and Grosjean's going to have to raise his game. I mean, that's what's so good about IndyCar racing, is that 2-3 tenths and you're in 10th or 12th place. You're out of it. So the pressure is just, it's unbelievable. Not only with the pressure, but to perform every weekend for the sponsors, and just a tenth of a second, one mistake, and you're out.
Yeah, and we saw that with Graham Rahal with his father Bobby, when Bobby stepped out of the pit area because of conflict there that they were getting. I think that worked out better for Graham. Rahal seems to be making some progress, but it's funny when people go, "Oh, AJ Foyt Racing, boy, they're really struggling." Yeah, they're struggling, but like what you were saying, they're only a few tenths of a second off. That if you look at the if anybody wants to understand how tight it is, take a look at the scoring sheet from Long Beach this weekend, and then go look at what it was in 1993 or 97 even. And, the difference back then was so much bigger. Obviously there's reasons for that with the cars and everything being the same, whatnot. Understand that, but it's just tightened everything up. So for those guys in the back, they're pretty fast too. They're just a little bit off though.
Oh, there's a dozen guys that can win on any given day, and you see that, and that's the whole thing that's good about IndyCar racing. I don't know about 27 or 28 cars on a street circuit is pretty tough, especially when they're going that fast through the corners.
A nice event that they're doing is of course the historic F1 Challenge at Long Beach. And just how many cars did they have? There were about 20 cars, I think it was, in the event, and
25
cars. So you had Lotuses, you had the Penske's in the mid 70s, a lot of different cars. I think the oldest car was that Tyrrell that they had. Well, I think it was from 71.
They had a Jackie Stewart Tyrrell.
That thing was beautiful.
They had one Mario car. The other one was a DeAngelis Mansell car. But I got to tell you, for me, Formula One, being out of high school and going to 1982 Detroit Grand Prix, it was bringing back flashbacks from that, to see those cars. And those same cars were there when I was covering Detroit in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I had McLarens, and then they had some 70s. They had a couple McLarens. And it was just amazing to see.
Yeah, they had the Andrea De Cesaris Alfa Romeo from the 82 season, which for
Yeah,
me, that
yeah.
'82 season was
Bruce
very key for
Giacomelli.
me. Yeah, it was pretty iconic
Right.
for me because I remember reading, you get your Road and Track magazine, and you would read the race reports, and I just thought those cars were so well. Yeah, everybody always says any car your teenage years is always your favorite car, and those cars circa 1979 to 82 in F1 are always one of my favorites. I think the FW07 Williams car is one of the prettiest Formula
Oh
One
yeah.
cars of all time.
I mean, and the Rosberg car was there. Zach Brown brought his Rosberg car that he drove, and then Pat Long was driving one of the Williams FW8. And I mean, to see those cars run at Long Beach where they ran in the '80s was amazing. And what's so good about it was that era. There was so many different types of formulas with the chassis and designs. You had guys like Gordon Murray just making these crazy cars. I mean, they were like pencils with wheels on them and 1,200 horsepower engines. You'd never think they'd be able to drive them around the track. And to see them all on the track in Long Beach was amazing. And Jim McCallan, the guy that runs Long Beach, he is just he made that happen. And he is probably one of the best. And like I've been saying, even going back on the radio show with you, Steve, Long Beach is definitely, you got to check it off on the bucket list. I put it up
Yep.
there as going to Indy for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I did want to address one more thing before we go, and that's the rumor that came over the weekend about Liberty Media interested in purchasing IndyCar, the entire series, and basically turning it into a F1 feeder series. And IndyCar has since refuted that sale rumor and has pushed back on it, saying there's no truth, it's completely wrong. And I think Eddie and I are in agreement why this really doesn't work, because there's such a void between the politics. I think the one thing against it is the void. For those of us who've been following racing a long time, there's a reason why nobody really knows in the U.S. about Logan Sargent, because in order to get to F1, you got pretty much for an American to get into F1, and a couple have tried, like Santino Ferrucci, even Connor Daly. You got to get over there by the time you're 16, 17 years old and go through their series that's in Europe. And there's no way the Europeans are going to give that up. And
No.
it's
No,
it's
you see
just
it, you see
the
it.
logistics of it and everything. I just think it's a silly move. Now they may there's somebody at Liberty Media might have been saying, maybe we might be interested in it, but this thing about turning it into a feeder series, it just really doesn't make sense, does it, Eddie?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, you could see how they want to welcome Colton Herta. They won't even give him a super license, which is
Right.
just absurd. They're, I mean, it's a big boys club. It's $1 billion club of these billionaires that decide, who gets where and who brings the money and who gets what engine. I mean, there's so much stuff going on in Formula One right now with McLaren. Now they're looking at Honda now is back in
Right.
the cycle, and then you got Andretti working with GM. And I think the next few years, I don't know where all this money's coming from the manufacturers. I just hope there's no more cryptocurrency involved in Formula One, because I don't think it's going to last.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I mean, the perfect example is Andretti Racing. Andretti, who made an initial offer, and then they tell them to do XYZ. Okay, we see your offer, we're going to reject it. We'll do this. Well, then they do XYZ, and they walk back there and they say, no, not really. Especially bringing GM aboard and whatnot. And it's really silliness if you think of it, when they're saying, well, we don't want to divide the pie. There is so much money being generated by Formula One right now with the rights fees and everything else and the popularity of it. And if you do a Google search on Formula One in Las Vegas and see how much money they're putting into that facility, that is
It's
not turning into, well,
it's a
it may be a temporary circuit, but Formula One is going to have a permanent is going to be in Las Vegas. They're going to have a permanent residence in Las Vegas. So
well, it's the perfect place for them.
yeah.
I mean, it's the perfect place for lodging and the hotels, and it is a perfect place. I'd rather see it in the parking lot at Caesar's Palace.
Well, I tell you what, Las Vegas is going to be the new capital of sports because you have the Oakland A's, which will probably be moving. They have a hockey team, they got a football team, they're going to get their baseball team, they're going to have Formula One, they have NASCAR, they have drag racing, they have everything, and because sports gambling is going to eventually fill that gap that motorsports has had since the tobacco companies left in the early 2000s, and it's going to happen. Whether you're for it or against it doesn't matter. Money talks in this world, doesn't it, Eddie?
It does. And as just recently in the last couple of days, Andretti Michael has has a funder for the entry fee. He has a donor for $285 million. And it's going to be over $1 billion for him to enter Formula One.
No, people are crossing their eyes when they're looking at this money, but you see the money that's being asked for purchasing the Washington Commanders, which I hope they get rid of that stupid name. They should return it to the Washington football team and leave it at that. But the money that's being thrown around, it's not a club for millionaires. It's a club for billionaires and billionaire companies.
I know. You could see it, and hopefully they're going to come back to reality, because I think Miami's coming up in 2 weeks, and I just can't see people after last year, how bad it was from the people I talked to, the fans, and I went down there for one day, but it was just, there were so many people. It was so hot. There was no place to park. The hotels are just outrageous. You can't get a place. And I just don't think the second one is going to be as good as they say it's going to be. So, but who am I? I guess we'll find out in a couple of weeks and see if people are going to go to it.
I forgot to break this out before. I got this thanks to Judy Stropis. We'll be talking with John Saltonstall in the next week or two and talking about his new book on Jacky Ickx. This thing is huge.
I saw it at Judy was at the dinner.
Fantastic book. Yeah. Looking forward to talking to John on it. I mean, this thing is incredible. He's done book on Niki Lauda and other books. Fantastic. This is from Evero, printed in England. They're the same ones that did the Brian Redman and David Hobbs books. So
really? Okay.
Top quality old English printing.
Well,
very.
You should have sent it to me. I could have had Jacky sign it for you.
I just got it. a couple of days ago. So thanks to Judy Stropis and her work, and she does promoting those books. So looking forward to chatting with it. Appreciated chatting with you. IndyCar, we had an open test at IMS on the big oval. I think that went quite well. It shows the speed, and like Eddie was saying before, you're going to have at least 12 cars in contention, if not more, at the Brickyard. And I'll be down there in a couple of weeks for the Grand Prix race, reporting from there. Things are really kicking into high gear, especially for us in the Midwest finally, Eddie. And we're taking time out, and we'll be in touch.
Except for Aaron Rodgers and the Milwaukee Bucks, huh?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. Well, I'm happy for Aaron. I'm happy for the Packers. I think it's a good trade for both teams.
Wait, he thinks the media is so rough in Milwaukee. Wait till he gets to New York. Okay?
That'll be interesting to see. There'll be some fireworks there. Hey, as long as he plays 65% of the snaps, I don't care, right?
At that stadium, they charge $30 for a pretzel and $40 for a beer.
Well, there you go, New York money. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Eddie. We appreciate it. We'll be talking to you again.
Thanks, Steve. Take care.
Take care, buddy.